Today's guest needs no LinkedIn, no website, and definitely no PPTs.
I don't need a LinkedIn to prove to the world what I do.
So, how did that transition happen for you?
So I figured that I wasn't going to be a very good chef. So let me chase and give all the chefs a really hard time.
Do you really bring that energy in every time?
Every single idea, I want to be able to explore to its maximum.
How do you bring that concept to everyday things?
Our brands reflect our work. And I think the greatest joy I get is if my brands succeed, that's success for me and that's success for every member of the team that has contributed to it. So building relationships is the key. Not making it transactional is what the newer generation needs to know and understand.
Today's guest needs no LinkedIn, no website, and definitely no PPTs. With over 31 years in the industry, Radhika Misra has quietly shaped the narrative of India's most loved and revered F&B brands, from one Manam Chocolate, Papa's, Lupa, Burma, Bombay Canteen, Pistola, Chutty New York, just to name a few. A former patisserie chef turned powerhouse communication and brand consultant, she's built her career on intuition, relationships, and an uncanny ability to see what or who will make a great brand before the world catches on. She's known for saying it just the way it is, never chasing trends, and showing up where it truly matters for clients and for journalists. At 56, Radhika is now transitioning into a new chapter, consulting, mentoring, and continue to shape the PR industry from behind the scenes. In this episode, we talk about her most rewarding work, what makes for a good story, the magic of Indian media, and why PR today needs more curiosity and less content calendars. Radhika, thank you so much for agreeing to share your story and talking to us on the India PR Show Season 2.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Radhika, not many people know that you studied to be a chef, started your career with Taj, then you were running hot breads, and for the large part of your life, you've been running PR for some of the best brands and food brands in the country. So, how did that transition happen for you?
So I figured that I wasn't going to be a very good chef. So let me chase and give all the chefs a really hard time. So I thought that movement in my career was going to be a fun one. But no, I enjoyed working in the kitchens. I still am very passionate about the energy that a kitchen gives you. There's nothing that's second to it. But back in the day, in the late 90s, there wasn't that much creativity. And there was a certain monotony in what you did. And I don't think people had an opportunity to work in standalone spaces like you have today. So the opportunity to be able to be creative was very limited. And I think that's what got to me. My transition into PR it just happened. Somebody I met suggested that, I had the skills, I had the abilities, or that person noticed that I did and suggested that I look at now what is Weber Shandwick, and I applied for a job with them. So, and interestingly enough, they were looking for somebody to work on the Oberoi Bangalore account who had an understanding of F&B or an interest in it, and also work on a few other brands that had a retail background. And my background had been with retail as well as F&B. So they felt that I was bringing that value into the account.
So, being a chef definitely helps you in PR to date, right? So, what are the learnings that you've had in your early days, in hospitality? What are those things that you bring into PR?
Wow, I've never thought about it. Maybe it's just an intrinsic part of me. Work discipline. I'm not disciplined as a person otherwise, but as far as my work is concerned, I'm supremely disciplined. Creativity, and I think that's another thing that I learned. Just the ability to work with different kinds of people, to be able to work in challenging situations because you have absolutely no idea what it's going to be like, right? You can put something perfectly great into the oven And if the power goes, that's it. And you have to work on your feet and think on your feet and figure out what to do next. And I think those were some of the sort of lessons that I sort of learned early, and that no job was a small job. I think that was very, very important. So you learned to clean up your own mess. You didn't leave a crazy mess for somebody else to work on. And just the ability to be able to think on your feet, to be able to look at a situation and say, how can I better it? How can I offer a great service to somebody? I think those were some of the elements that I must have picked up on the way.
That's really, really nice. There's one thing that when we spoke, you mentioned that you've always believed in going big or go home. That means that just really do it well or you don't do it at all. And I think that we all know your work that you've done with so many wonderful brands. So, how do you bring that concept to everyday things at your work?
It essentially is that when you look at something, how do you approach it believing that this is going to build it long term, right? It's very easy when something launches to be able to create excitement around it. Everybody wants to talk about something new. How do you sustain that story over a long period of time? How do you imagine what that brand is going to look like 5 years from now? Because the problem with us is that we live in an age of instant gratification. Put it on Instagram. Oh, it's trending today, it's news today, and it's gone tomorrow. So, how do you create a vision or a thought or an idea in your head that will sustain any brand that you work with over a period of time? And that idea in your head has to be big. It has to be grand. It has to be larger than life. Because when you think larger than life, you are aspiring to do something fantastic. When you think small and say, oh, I'm just happy with doing 3 interviews, doing 2 events, doing 4 launches, and I'm good with that, you will never, never push yourself to doing something that's exciting and challenging as a professional. So that's the reason I say, think big, think grand, imagine what this simple little idea could be. It could be the next path breaking thing. And when you think like that and when you process your own mind in that way, you will obviously turn around and deliver that as well.
So do you do that for every campaign, every outreach that you do? Do you think about this, that how can I make this bigger? Is that what you do? Because I find this so interesting, because a lot of time we just do things for the sake of it being in PR, right? Okay, just one release for gifting or whatever. But do you really bring that energy in every time?
Every single idea I want to be able to explore to its maximum. I'm not willing to say, ye chalta hai, let's just do this and move on to the next thing, because then A, I'm cheating myself, and I'm certainly cheating a client by not maximizing the value that I could get out of it. And I think sometimes it could be pretty exasperating for clients and also teams that work with me, because it's not necessary. And how do you continue to keep that energy going, right? But if you don't challenge yourself, how are you going to move to the next thing? And as an individual and as a professional that works with different teams, sometimes I think we're so lethargic and we're so, yeah, let's just do this and move on to the next thing. I'm like, no, this has got to be as good as work as your last one. It's going to be better every time you do it. It's just got to be something that makes you feel proud about doing that. It doesn't matter what it is.
That's really interesting. You know, Radhika, there's one more thing that's been, in my mind since I first met you. You don't have an active LinkedIn, you don't have a website. You are very little active on Instagram. You're not very active on Instagram. You put the brands out there, but you are always behind the scenes. Why?
But isn't that our job as PR professionals? Our brands reflect our work. And I think the greatest joy I get is if my brands succeed, that's success for me and that's success for every member of the team that has contributed to it. So I also believe that in the PR industry, a large part of what we do, we're in the business of reputations. And we silently need to build our own reputations.
Yeah.
And who better to give you credit for the work that you do than your own clients and for the people that you work with? So the important thing is for us to be able to work And each of those pieces of work, each of those clients of ours are our biodata. I don't need a LinkedIn to prove to the world what I do. I need the clients to be able to succeed so that that is a reflection of the effort and the time that me and all the people that work on that brand have put into it.
So clients approach you always because it's word of mouth referral, right?
I think they've stopped approaching me now. But yes, a lot of my work has come through reference. A lot of my clients give feedback on what are the pros and cons. One a client of mine once said to another potential client, she makes her clients work very hard. I'm like, I'm in it. I'm going to work my ass off. I expect the same support and the same kind of contribution for who I'm working with. And when I see that dynamics, that also inspires me to work harder. So yes, you could ask my clients. I'm not easy. I'm exasperating, challenging. I will not, sort of settle for the mediocre. Um, Everything has to be well thought, well executed, because and it could be something small, but let's do it well is the idea, and let's think about what we can get out of it, both as a client and as a member of the team that works on the brand.
You mentioned once that you will go to any length to get your work done. And there is this one interesting story that you shared with me about showing up at the client's place at 2 in the night to get your work done. Do you want to talk about that?
See, at the end of the day, you have to get your job done, right? And I don't mean to be able to use Machiavellian ways, but at the end of the day, your work is priority for you. It's not high on a client's list because the client has 20 other things to be able to take care of. So you've got to find ways and means to be able to get what you need to be able to do your job effectively. And if that means at 2 o'clock in the morning, I haven't got a piece of document that I need approval to. Yes, I got into the car, went to the restaurant, went to the chef's office, sat on the chair, and said, I'm happy to wait. You take as long as you want. As soon as you clear the document for me, I'll get into the car and go home. So tomorrow morning, I can do what I need to do for you. It's priority for me, so I need to make that extra effort. It's not priority for the client. It's part of the many things that that person has to take care of in order to run his or her business. So
I
it's
love
important for
that.
us to be able to do what we need to do.
I love that. I love that. I really inspire.
Sorry, so to sort of add to it, would I use devious means to be able to get a job done? No, there are limits to that. I think I want to be able to say that I'm on the right side of integrity. But yes, if I have to use creative ways, and that's why they say that, brand and PR professionals and communication professionals need to be creative. This is one of the areas that you need to be creative because you need to get your work done. So
Yeah. You know, Talking about your work, Radhika, there was, I know from people that you put in 2 years before, you launched Manam. And, for me, and I think for a larger PR, teams, I don't think so anybody has put in that long. And I think it's very fascinating for me to understand what work went into the 2 years. So if you would be able to talk about that so that, it's learning for everybody, saying that, typically we have a 3 months time or 6 months of lead up time, but 2 years, and the kind of results and the kind of work that you did with Manam is awe inspiring, So I want, if you can share, your playbook, or how did you go about that? What was the mindset like, you know?
maybe I was just inefficient, which is why I needed 2 years where people need 6 months. No,
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think when you're trying to build a category, there's a lot of understanding that needs to go in, right? And a lot of the clients that I've worked with, we work together on the journey because you have to, we're just not storytellers. We're just not spin doctors the way people would like to imagine us to be. If we work on a brand, you have to be able to craft the brand story. And it's very often that clients call and say, oh, I've taken a year to create this magnum opus and this beautiful restaurant, but we're launching it next week. And I'm like, what part of the crafting of that story have I been a part of? So when a client actually comes to me and says, I am creating something new, I am creating a new category, or I'm trying to build a category, as in the case of craft chocolate and Manam chocolate, there was a lot of thinking, a lot of research, a lot of understanding that we as professionals have to go through before I go out and sell the story. So today, if somebody asks me a question, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. That is not something that is acceptable. Only when I understand the story at a grassroots level am I able to craft it, to be able to tell that story, and to be able to find different angles and opportunities to be able to share that story, because it isn't one straight line. And I remember the first time we went to West Godavari, it was 43 degrees. I was the oldest member of the crew, and I said to everybody, we're leaving at 4 a.m. in the morning, I will be down at 3:59. And I know that there were a lot of people watching to see whether I would survive the grueling schedule that we had. But I was determined, and I was like, if I don't know the backstory, if I don't understand what sets craft chocolate apart from industrial chocolate, why is the West Godavari going to become a prominent point of origin? How am I going to be able to convince somebody to write about it or feature it or talk about it, or, just be able to even want to buy their product? And I think that just starts at a basic understanding of brands. And I say this to a lot of people: don't work on an account based on what a client is sharing with you. Understand what the industry is about, understand what the competition is doing, build your own perceptions and your own references around the industry, because then you have perspective.
Right.
You just don't have one singular way of looking at things, which is the client's way of looking at it or a brand's way of looking at it. You are building your own opinion to be able to tackle the multiple opinions that may present itself in front of you.
Right.
So, yeah, Manam's been one of the most challenging assignments in my career, perhaps, only because I knew nothing about chocolate. Well, I did. I was punished while I was working with a hotel many years ago because I was chatting too much, and they made me make room service chocolates. And I think that's what pretty much put me off chocolate, and I didn't go anywhere near it for many years after. But I think just the opportunity to learn something new, and how do you embrace that, and how do you take it on, and how do you sort of envelope all the information that's being presented to you, to, I don't know whether enough PR professionals and brand consultants have the opportunity to have clients who want them to be part of the journey.
Right.
I mean, I started working with the Bombay Canteen a year, no, about 7 months before they actually launched. So you're part of crafting the story. You're part of the idea of how you want to communicate what sets the Bombay Canteen apart from the 10 other Indian restaurants that existed. How do you talk about contemporary Indian food in an environment that didn't know about contemporary Indian food?
Yeah.
Monkey Bar, for example, we were launching gastropubs. I remember getting a call once very, very late at night, and Chef Manu said to me, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm home." He said, "Get into the car and come out to the office. I want to show you something." And I arrived there, and there was a blueprint of what could potentially be the Monkey Bar. And I'm like, to be a part of a moment like that, where you're a part of somebody's thought and ideation, we consider ourselves exceedingly lucky to be part of that.
Right.
And not saying, this is my product, this is my menu, now go sell it. I'm not willing to sell something I'm not a part of.
And I think you said this so well, and I think it's a two-way problem. I think it's the clients sometimes who want instant work without, investing in PR early on, and I think it's also the industry PR industry problem where I think we need to go more deep, and I think there is a lot of surface level approach which I feel needs to change.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, do I have the inclination, the desire, or the time to know more? Do I want to scratch below the surface and as a professional understand? Or do I want to say, yeah, chalta hai, I get a brief. And sometimes, you were invited into a client office, they would give you a brief. And that's not how I work. I always say to clients, I'd like to sign up, work with you for a few months, understand the challenges, the business, what you're trying to achieve, and then put a plan together. How, from the outside, with two briefing sessions, am I going to craft the entire communication strategy? That's dangerous.
Right.
And when clients give you the opportunity, you have to be able to grab it with both hands and say, I am indeed blessed and lucky that people want to be able to invest that kind of time. But I also understand that me as an individual, I have that choice and option.
Right.
And that's why I chose to go the independent consultant way and not the agency route. I'm not worried about having to, only think about, sure, we're in the business to make money and that's a great gratification. But I have so many other reasons why I want to take on a client.
Right.
I want to take on a client because of the opportunity it gives me to be able to demonstrate my abilities as a professional, the way it challenges me as a professional, the opportunity it gives me to learn something new. I try and do different uh, categories only because it gives me the opportunity to learn something new.
Right.
And over 32 years, when I worked with Weber Shandwick or 24 years since I've been an independent professional, I've always tried to do things differently for different clients. There is no cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Just because this approach worked for somebody, it doesn't work for somebody else, and it would be dangerous to replicate that.
Right. Right. While you talk about being, working on these brands alone, but I think you are a one-person army where you work with what I think 12 clients at a time.
I don't work alone on these clients, and it would be wrong to say that I'm a one-woman army. I have an incredible team of people, whether they are my associates, whether they are in client teams that work with me to be able to do the work that I do. I will not and cannot for any point in time take credit for all of this for myself. Cannot. There are a bunch of people, and I am grateful to them every day of my life, that support me, that back me, that do a lot of the ground research for me, that put up with my crazy ideas, exacting ways to be able to enable me to do the stuff. I'm doing the last mile or the first mile, but there's a lot in between that there are a lot of people supporting me on.
That's really nice. That brings me back to this one question, one thing that you had actually mentioned, that there should be, and for you, there's an academic approach to PR. Can you elaborate on that?
So when you get a brief from a client, that's one perspective. You have to delve into the subject from different perspectives. So look at it from a consumer's point of view, look at it from the industry point of view, and approach it with a certain amount of geekiness, I would say, and to be able to understand the environment in which you're existing and which you're going to operate in, and then be able to build out a strategy. Sitting in your office, staring out at the trees, is not going to give you insight. If you're in the industry, you have to know what's happening. What are the issues? What are the challenges? Government, social, financial. How are people dining out? How are they looking at approaching food post the pandemic, prior to the pandemic? Are people going out more often given the way their lives are? Who is going out? So, everything that you are given, you need to look at it with knowledge and depth. And I think to be able to gather knowledge gives you the power to be able to tell a better story. Because very often when somebody asks you a question, if you are not equipped to be able to answer that question in a certain effective way, then the person is not going to be able to trust the other information that you're doling out. Have you done your due diligence? Have you understood? Are you existing in a silo where you're only looking at one perspective, or are you approaching it with a certain amount of, as I said, geekiness, and being able to gather as much knowledge and information to be able to then evaluate, how do I use this information? How do I process this, and how do I share this based on what a client requires or what you want to convey to your larger audiences?
I think this translates also into the way you share information with a journalist. I remember, one journalist was giving in a workshop, giving us an example of the way you put together an email to a journalist. And she said that it is so thorough with everything in that one email that I never have to go back asking for something. Everything is pre thought through, and it has everything right from the images labeled to like you imagine it, and that's what is there. So, and I think your academic approach or your process oriented approach reflects in even that. And I think that's a learning for us at Ebony and Ivory as well. I keep giving the example about have you thought about this, have you put everything, and I think that's really, really amazing.
Interesting that you mentioned this. When I was starting out my career in PR, one of the journalists once said to me that I'm getting 100 communications, right? If you can sell me an idea in the first 3 lines of your email, then you've got my attention. If it's taken me 10 lines for to me to even process and understand what you're trying to say, I move on to the next thing. You've lost my attention, right? So I have to be sure that everything that I send out, I'm actually trying to sell an idea. I'm not trying to sell a client. I'm trying to sell an idea or a concept or a thought. If I'm not articulate about how I want to put that across to the person, I've lost the person's attention. The second thing is, as professionals, we are supposed to preempt what is required. Why is it that basic stuff like documents, backgrounders, information, photographs, this is standard stuff. This is your checklist of things that you need to have ready before, because you know potentially that you're going to do a story. You know potentially that you have to preempt what the journalist or the brand person is asking from you. And that's the preparation work that you do.
Right.
Right? And at the end of the day, I don't believe one story is better than the other or one is more important than the other. If you establish your working relationship with people and it is a good working relationship, somebody is willing to give you a fair chance to share your idea the second time round. But if I'm all over the place, if I don't know what I'm doing, I don't have my information in place, will somebody give me the second chance to even hear what I have to say the second time round? No.
Yeah.
So get your act together, get everything, preempt what is potentially going to be needed, and then get down to doing your job. Don't start then figuring it out as you go along the way, because you're wasting somebody else's time.
Yeah.
You're wasting an opportunity as well.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You know, Radhika, you do a lot of work across different cities. I know that you travel and spend, while you love Bangalore and you're Bangalore based, but I know you spend a lot of time in Bombay and Delhi, and, you've just finished, I think a launch in Delhi, and, you were in Bombay. So, every city, and especially from a PR and a journalist perspective, works differently. So how does your approach change when you work across cities? Like, what is there a very city cultural nuance that you look at?
I don't think it's a city thing.
Okay.
I think it's an individual thing. And if you understand who you're speaking to, if you understand what is going to be of interest to that person, then you've got that person's attention.
Right.
If I'm going to speak to a fashion journalist about food, they're not interested. Or if I want to speak to a food journalist about fashion, again, that's not their core area of interest. So I don't believe that it's a city specific thing. I think it's a publication, an outlet, a medium specific thing, and it's an individual specific thing. And I think with different mediums, a print publication works effectively, very different from an online.
Yeah.
Um, Today, largely driven by social media storytelling as well. That is very, very different from how you would approach a magazine. And therefore, you have to be able to understand who you're speaking to, who that audience of yours is, and then be able to approach it from that level. So I don't believe that it's a city thing. I really believe it's an individual and a medium thing.
When you look back at all the work that you have done, is there a single moment that you can think of and like, this is why I do what I do? Like, this is this is the build up to this moment. Is there ever been that one thing? And I know, I am making you choose, but one thing that
I think every project or every assignment or every activity teaches me something,
yeah,
right? Whether it is to deal with a crisis, to deal with a annoyed client, whether it is to be able to deal with a challenge of weather where nobody shows up. Um, I love my brands. I truly, deeply love them. I don't have kids, they're my kids. I'm not choosing because I think every one of the projects or every one of the activities that I work on teach me something. Um, I think I want to take on work that pushes the limits and boundaries of what I can do. Do I want to work on another restaurant brand? Maybe not. Do I want to work on a more food oriented brand? But that's because each one of them is giving me something different. So, no, I can't choose.
So you're not going to tell me, you're not going to choose. Is there any one that I know that, and I think for this is a
Why are you
disclaimer.
making me choose? You want to get me into trouble?
No,
I'll leave
this is a
this.
disclaimer that Radhika loves all her brands equally, but we need.
No, there are moments in time when I love one more than the other.
Okay.
It depends on how they're behaving and how they're operating. But okay, so I will say that many, many years ago, while I was working on the Titan account, the Titan Watches account, we launched Dash. And I think that taught me the immense power of creative thinking. All it was a children's range of watches where we had different dials.
Wow.
And how do we conceptualize an idea of getting kids to do a show? And we painted their faces with the dials of the watches. And we created the whole experience like a fun evening. We invited journalists with their kids. And I think of course, it was done at large scale. It was done with incredible amount of time, energy, resources. But what I think it taught me was the ability to do something with an element of creativity. Don't do it just. Find an interesting way of doing it because then the people that you engage with are also excited about it.
Yeah.
Because, I don't ever want to be in the place of journalists. God knows they have to deal with one launch and second launch and sometimes 3 or 4 launches in a day. How do I make it worth their while and worth it for them to step out of their offices, show up for an hour and a half or two? How do I make that fun? And it could be little elements, it could be just the experience that we're offering them to even be able to start on time. That's respectful, those who show up on time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's what I took away. Just the be creative, think out of the box, think wild, push the limits of what you can possibly do.
Right. Radhika, currently, I just for people who don't know you and your work,
Yeah.
can you tell us a bit about what are the brands that you're building currently?
So currently in the F&B space, primarily. So I work with the Hunger Inc. team, and they have Bombay Cantino, Pedro, Bombay Sweet Shop, Papa's, and Veronica's, and there the part of the role is more a brand sort of consultant. I work with the internal team on some amount of media relations. So it's it's a different role that I play with different clients.
Right.
I work with Manam Chocolate. I work with Lupa and Single Thread, with Chef Panu Chandra. Work with the team at Pistola, which is 100% aged agave spirit. I work with Burma, which is again a specialty Burmese restaurant. And there I look specifically at strategies that we have to adopt to be able to expand the way we are. How do we approach launches in different cities? How do we keep the brand sort of engaged and excited in the minds of the customer? Chatti in New York, Chef Reggie Matthew, who runs Kapachaka Kandari, another brand that I've worked with for several years. He launched Chatti, which was a toddy shop inspired restaurant in New York.
Yeah.
And I work with him and our teams in New York to be able to create the value for the brand in India, to be able to build and support that equity, and to be able to support the team in New York to create awareness for the concept of toddy shop cuisine. I mean, regional Indian food is really going big. It's a moment for it
Yeah.
in the world, and to be a part of that movement is again fantastic. And I consider myself immensely lucky to be in those situations and have those opportunities to do what I do.
Yeah. No, I've seen the stories and the storytelling that happens for this brand. It's been phenomenal. I think this kind of just leads me into, the kind of relationships also that you've built with the media, right? And what is that one? And I know I've also spoken to a lot of PR professionals who talk about, in today's time when we don't meet people and journalists are becoming very, very off PR people, there's so much of bombarding happen. How can they build relationships and long lasting relationships with media? So, what is it that your advice to, the more younger PR audiences that are there?
So build relationships. Don't be there hawking a story.
Right.
Right? I think that's
As
the
simple.
core of what you do
Yeah.
is learn to build relationships. So be there for them, be a part of their process as well, understand their challenges and the environment in which they function. That's one. To be able to be a supporter and a provider of knowledge. Because, hey, I'm sending you this, now you go figure it out. No, it's your client. You need to figure it out. You need to figure out what is the story idea, and you can work and collaborate on it together. To nobody is inferior and superior in this process.
Right.
You are two professionals working together. Be a professional.
Right.
Don't WhatsApp people at 10 in the night.
Yeah.
Don't send them an email and then call them. Don't reach out to the person who's not responsible for that particular beat. Show that respect.
Right.
Because when you demonstrate and show that respect to a journalist, that journalist will show respect to you.
Right.
So, no, not. I have several friends who are journalists, and they're they're two very different parts of my life. Okay, because I'm in the business, I know them and I hang out with them, but that's the social part of it. But if I were to send an email, I have to remember I am speaking and I'm writing to a professional.
Yeah.
And I have to be able to respect at that time, even if it's 2 minutes that they're looking at that email.
Yeah.
Right? I can't assume that one is going to lead me to the other. And if anybody in the business thinks that that's how it works, I have to tell them no. Because I get told no more often than I get told yes.
Really?
Yes. But you're only seeing the output of something.
Yeah.
Something can take 6 months for a story to happen.
Yeah.
You just have to be patient. You just have to wait for the right opportunity. You can't drive people crazy. And I will say that sometimes PR professionals have clients that harass them.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be able to say, I will do it. I will do it when the time is right because I don't own that piece of publication.
Yeah.
If I want to own that X amount of column centimeter, please put an ad.
Yeah.
If I am involved in a storytelling process, in the editorial process, then there is a process involved in it.
Right.
I have to follow that process.
Right.
So building relationships is the key. Not making it transactional. is what the newer generation needs to know and understand. Okay, in my case, I've built those relationships over 30 years. Some of them are still in the business. They've reached, but are they going to say no to me? Oh, of course they will say no.
Right. Yeah.
Will they give me a fair hearing? Of course they will do that. And for that I am grateful. That they will give me a fair chance to put my case forward. But if it does not work for their byline, if it does not work for their publication, if it does not work for what is the theme and the direction of the story, it is a no for me.
Radhika, we're reaching the last part of our segment, and I really 30 plus years in the industry. So what's next for Radhika?
Retirement.
No, come on, no. We spoke about this. You're not retiring.
So, two things that I really genuinely want to do. I just have to figure out how I'm going to sort of transition to it. I do a bit of it right now, and that's a part of my life that I like to keep personal. Is that I mentor brands, I mentor folks in the business who I genuinely believe are doing some great work. I may not have the time to be able to give them full time. I don't want to be engaged in a formal sort of financial exchanged kind of an engagement. And I like to keep it easy and comfortable. I would like to do more of that.
Right.
Because I believe that those are brands that will greatly benefit from what I can offer them. And that will help grow their businesses as well. Today I look at the brands that I work on and I look back and I think that at some point of time, they were all starting out.
Yep.
Right? It's very cool. And I normally see this at awards events, and I see a lot of the newer PR professionals hustling. And I said to somebody the last time, "You want any of my clients? Please take them. I don't have an issue. They've worked with me, but if you want, you can take them." The point is, it's very easy to pick up a brand when it's big.
Yeah. Yeah.
The biggest challenge and the most rewarding of the experience is that when you intuitively feel that something is going to potentially be big,
Yeah.
right? And when you're part of that growth story, you're taking a risk and a chance, but the joy and the professional satisfaction you get is second to none.
Right. Is there also a possibility of mentoring the PR folks? Have you thought about that?
So I do that with a lot of my associates already. And these are people that I work with. They're either internal to the brand teams that I work with or they're associates that I have. The problem is that do people want to learn? Do people want to invest their time to bettering their skill sets?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you don't, then I'm sorry, I'm not here to
Yeah.
share knowledge and impart knowledge for the sake of it.
Right.
I know a lot of journalists say, "Oh, you should start your own PR school." No, heaven forbids. I'm not doing that. But I know that I do a lot of that already when I work
With them. Yeah.
I have, people that I've worked with 10, 15, 18 years ago who come back to me and say, I just did this or I just launched that or can I call you and discuss an idea or I'm stuck somewhere. And I'm like, yeah, call me. I'm happy to chat with PR professionals if the value of my experience benefits them. But only if they're genuinely interested in learning. Otherwise, please don't waste my time.
I'm sure there are many, PR folks out there who's going to, they're going to benefit a lot from your knowledge. And, today's conversation for me has been one of them. And thank you so much for sharing so much of wisdom. And I truly mean it. Whenever I interact with you, I go back and I question. I said, if Radhika does it this way, I should, really level up to do this. So thank you so much for, sharing.
I don't think it should be about leveling up. I don't think we need to aspire to be somebody else. I think we need to be able to look at something and say, how can I do this to the best of my own ability?
Yeah.
Right? And that is so different for different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you feel you've given it your 100%, then that's your best job.
Right.
Just because X or Y has done it, the circumstances are different, the challenges are different.
Yeah.
And what you see from the outside is not necessarily what is going on in the inside.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I may have the opportunity to do many things. You may have limited ones,
Yeah.
but do what you can to the best of your ability. I think that's the most important thing.
Right, right. No, absolutely, absolutely. Now we have this super fun rapid fire, and I love putting you on the spot. So these are 5 questions, one word or short answers, okay? No time to think.
That's
City with the best food stories.
Bangalore.
Yay! Okay.
Don't ask me why.
Why?
Because I think the city gives you the chance to take chances, take risks, create concepts. And I think the audiences here are you could have a 18-seater noodle bar. You could have a burger joint that requires you to make a reservation. You could have a home that's converted into a space for you to eat a home style meal. You could have a restaurant that's a 200-seater. And all that exists here only because the city is giving you the chance to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Most overrated word in PR today.
Collaboration. Sorry, I didn't know why it took me so long, but if I hear that word collaboration, my blood pressure goes up. Like, is that free products? Collaboration means to come together.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you free products, so you can do whatever you want with it. No, it doesn't work that way.
The world of influence and the world of media, different approaches. People don't understand that. But okay, one PR campaign you saw and thought and said, damn, I wish I did that.
None.
If not PR, you'd be doing what?
Sitting on a beach, drinking a picante, and letting my life go by.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Radhika, for joining us today. I think it was a very interesting conversation, and our folks, watching this would love it. We would love to hear some comments, and if there are any questions, we'll share that.
I don't know whether I want to hear the comments or not, but it was a lot of fun. Thank you. My first podcast. I'm sure lots of people have lots of things to say about it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.